They stood in the doorway of my own living room like it already belonged to them. "Mom, we've made the decision," my daughter said, arms crossed, chin lifted. "You're moving to Sunset Pines by the end of the month." My son-in-law smiled that tight smile of his and added, "It's already done. We've put down a deposit." I looked at them, these two people in business casual on a Sunday afternoon, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. Already done. Like I was a problem they'd solved over brunch. The house was warm. February in Ohio always made the radiators work overtime. I could hear them clicking and humming behind the walls, the same sound they'd made for 43 years. I stood near the piano, the one my husband Robert bought me for our 10th anniversary, and I didn't sit down. I didn't offer them coffee. I just stood there, holding the manila envelope I'd brought down from the bedroom when I heard them pull into the driveway. "Sunset Pines is a lovely facility," my daughter continued. "Her name is Karen. She's 44 now, though I still remember her at 4, crying because her balloon flew away at the county fair. They have activities. Bingo, a garden club. You'll make friends." "I have friends," I said quietly. "Mom," she sighed. That sigh. I'd heard it 1,000 times. It meant she was about to explain something obvious to someone too slow to understand. "This house is too big for you. The stairs are dangerous. You're 70 years old. 67. Same thing." My son-in-law, Greg, pulled out his phone and started scrolling. "The realtor says we can list it by March if we move fast. Market's hot right now. We'd be stupid not to take advantage." I looked at my daughter. "You've already talked to a realtor?" She didn't flinch. "We're trying to help you, Mom. You can't live alone forever." I wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because I'd been living alone for 11 years, ever since Robert passed, and not once in that time had Karen offered to help with the gutters, the furnace, the leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom. Not once had Greg shoveled the driveway or checked if the smoke detectors still worked. They lived 40 minutes away and visited twice a year, always around the holidays, always with an excuse to leave early. And now they were here to save me. "Where's Daniel?" I asked. Karen rolled her eyes. "He's not coming. He said this wasn't his business. Daniel is my son. 41, unmarried, works as a nurse in Columbus. He calls me every Sunday, sends me photos of his cat, doesn't ask for anything. I'd like to speak with him before any decisions are made," I said. Greg laughed. "Decisions have been made, Eleanor. That's what we're telling you. We've already contacted Sunset Pines. We've already scheduled the appraisal. All we need from you is cooperation." Cooperation. Like I was a dog who needed to stop barking. I looked at the manila envelope in my hands. Inside was a single document. Not thick, not dramatic, just a few pages stapled together. I'd had it prepared 6 months ago, after the last Thanksgiving dinner when I overheard Karen on the phone in the hallway saying, "She can't hold on to that house forever. We just need to be patient." I wasn't patient. I was awake. "I think," I said carefully, "there's been a misunderstanding." Karen tilted her head. "About what?" "About who owns this house." Greg stopped scrolling. He looked up with that expression men like him wear when they think someone is bluffing. "You own the house, Eleanor. That's the point, and we're here to help you manage it responsibly." I set the envelope on the coffee table between us. "The house was transferred into a trust 18 months ago. I am the lifetime beneficiary. The property cannot be sold, rented, or modified without the consent of all named parties." Silence. Karen blinked. "What trust?" "The one I established with my attorney after Robert passed. The one that names Daniel and my neighbor's granddaughter, Sophie, as successor trustees." Greg grabbed the envelope, tore it open, scanned the first page. His face went from pink to red in about 3 seconds. You can't just—" "I can," I said. And I did. Karen snatched the papers from him. Her eyes darted across the legal language like she was looking for a loophole. "This isn't fair. We've been planning for months. We've been trying to take care of you." I let her words hang in the air. Then I said, very quietly, "No, Karen. You've been waiting for me to get out of the way." She looked up, and for the first time in years, I saw something real in her eyes. Surprise. And behind it, the flicker of recognition. She knew I was right. The house was built in 1952 by a man named Howard Finch. He sold it to Robert's parents in 1971 for $18,000. Back then, the street was gravel and the nearest grocery store was a 20-minute drive. Robert grew up here, skinned his knees on that front porch, carved his initials into the oak tree in the backyard. I moved in as a bride at 23. I was so young I didn't even know how to balance a checkbook. Robert taught me. He taught me a lot of things. How to change a tire, how to read a contract, how to stand my ground when someone tried to talk over me. We raised Karen and Daniel in this house, watched them take their first steps on the hardwood floors in the living room, the ones I still wax every spring. Karen had her senior prom photos taken on the staircase. Daniel broke his arm falling out of the oak tree when he was 9. We buried Robert's mother from this house, then his father, then Robert himself. Some people say a house is just walls and a roof. Those people have never held 40 years of memory in their hands. After Robert died, I thought about selling. I did. The house felt too big, too quiet. Every room held an echo of him. The chair where he read the paper, the mug he always used, the one with the faded Reds logo, the dent in the hallway wall where he tripped carrying boxes one Christmas and laughed so hard he cried. But then I realized I didn't want less space. I wanted less noise. So I stayed. I painted the guest room lavender. I planted tomatoes in the backyard. I adopted a gray tabby named Margot and taught myself to bake sourdough. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt chosen. Karen never understood that. She'd started making comments a few years after the funeral, subtle at first. "Are you sure you can manage the yard, Mom?" Then, less subtle. "That staircase is a lawsuit waiting to happen." Then pointed. "We need to think about your future, Mom. You can't be selfish about this." Selfish. I turned that word over in my mind for weeks. Was I selfish for wanting to live in my own home? For not handing over the deed so my daughter could cash in before the market cooled? The last straw came 2 Thanksgivings ago. Greg had too much wine and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "You know, this property's probably worth 3 times what you paid. Wouldn't it be smarter to sell now and split the proceeds?" Split the proceeds, like I was already dead. That night, after they left, I called my attorney. Daniel came by 3 days after the confrontation. He brought soup, homemade, chicken, and dumplings, the way his grandmother used to make it. He didn't knock, just let himself in with the spare key I'd given him years ago. "You doing okay?" he asked, setting the pot on the stove. I was sitting at the kitchen table, Margot curled in my lap. "I've been better." He sat across from me. He had his father's eyes, soft and tired. He'd worked a double shift the day before, but still drove an hour to check on me. "Karen called," he said. "She's furious." "I know. She says you've cut her out, that you've given everything to a stranger." I stroked Margot's fur. "Sophie isn't a stranger. She's Martha's granddaughter. Martha was my neighbor for 31 years. We used to sit on her porch every summer evening, drinking iced tea and watching the fireflies. She passed 4 years ago, quietly, in her sleep. Sophie came down from Michigan for the funeral and never fully left. She checks on me twice a week, brings groceries, helps me with my taxes. She doesn't ask for anything. She just shows up. "I didn't cut Karen out," I said. "I protected myself." Daniel nodded slowly. "She's talking about getting a lawyer." "She can try." I told her not to. I told her this was your decision to make. I looked at him. My son. The one who never asked for money, never hinted about inheritance, never treated me like an obstacle. "Thank you." He shrugged. "You raised me better than that." We ate soup in silence. Outside, the sun was setting through the bare trees, casting long shadows across the backyard. I thought about Robert, about how he used to say that family isn't about blood, it's about showing up. Daniel showed up, Sophie showed up, Karen didn't. And now she was angry that I'd noticed. The letter from Karen's lawyer arrived on a Tuesday. It was short, formal, and full of words like competency, evaluation, and undue influence. She was claiming I wasn't mentally fit to manage my own affairs, that I'd been manipulated, that Sophie had coerced me into signing over my estate to a stranger. I read it once, then again, then set it on the counter next to the coffee maker. The audacity of it? Sophie came over that afternoon, like she always did. She noticed the letter before I could hide it. "What's this?" she asked, picking it up. I shook my head. "Nothing you need to worry about." But Sophie was smart. She read fast. When she looked up, her face had gone pale. "Eleanor, she's trying to have you declared incompetent." "She's trying," I agreed. "She won't succeed." "How can you be so calm?" I poured 2 cups of tea. Chamomile, good for nerves, because I've been preparing for this a lot longer than she has. Sophie sat down slowly. She was 28, bright, careful, worked as a paralegal downtown. She reminded me of Martha in 100 small ways. The way she tilted her head when she listened, the way she always brought something when she visited, even if it was just flowers from the grocery store. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said quietly. "I don't want you to think I was trying to." I reached across the table and held her hand. "I know exactly who you are, Sophie. That's why I chose you." She looked at me, eyes damp. "She's your daughter." "Yes," I said, "and she's been waiting for me to die since the day her father was buried." The words hung between us. Heavy, true. Sophie didn't argue. She'd heard enough from Karen's calls, seen enough from her drop-ins, to know what kind of love my daughter offered. The kind that came with conditions. The kind that sharpened into teeth when you said no. "What do we do?" Sophie asked. "We respond. We document. We don't blink." The next morning, I called my attorney. The competency hearing was scheduled for April. Karen hired a psychiatrist to evaluate me. I hired my own. I also gathered 32 character statements from neighbors, church members, doctors, even the mailman who'd known me for 15 years. I submitted my tax returns, my medical records, a copy of every prescription I'd filled in the last decade. Karen's lawyer argued that my decision to name Sophie as a trustee was evidence of confusion. Why would a mother bypass her own children for a near stranger? It must be manipulation. It must be cognitive decline. My lawyer asked one question in response. Has Miss Thompson visited her mother more than twice a year at any point in the last decade? Karen didn't answer. The judge reviewed everything. Asked me a few questions directly. What year was I born? Who is the current president? Can I explain, in my own words, why I established the trust? I answered calmly, clearly, without hesitation. At the end of the hearing, the judge looked at Karen and said, "There is no evidence of incapacity. This motion is denied." I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just walked out of the courtroom with Sophie on one side and Daniel on the other. Karen stayed behind. I didn't look back. 2 weeks later, she sent a text. Not an apology, just 5 words. "I hope you're happy now." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Daniel came for dinner that Sunday. He made spaghetti, his specialty, the one with too much garlic and never enough salt. I didn't complain. I never did. We sat in the dining room, the one we used to fill with guests on holidays. Now, it was just us, plus Margot weaving between chair legs. "Karen's not going to let this go," he said. "I know. She's already talking to Greg about appealing, hiring a different lawyer." I twirled my fork. "She can try as many times as she wants. The trust is airtight. My attorney made sure of it." Daniel looked at me for a long moment. "You've changed." "Have I?" "You used to avoid conflict. Let things slide. Now," he shook his head, "now you're sharper, more awake." I set down my fork. "Your father used to say I was too soft, too willing to bend so others didn't have to. He was right. I bent for 40 years, Daniel. For your grandfather, who never thought I was good enough. For your grandmother, who criticized everything I cooked. For Karen, who blamed me for things I couldn't control. I looked out the window. The oak tree was starting to bud, pale green against the gray sky. When your father died, I continued, I realized something. The people who demanded the most from me gave the least in return, and the people who gave freely, Martha, Sophie, you, they never asked for anything at all. Daniel was quiet for a while. Then he said, I'm sorry I didn't stand up sooner. You stood up when it mattered. I should have said something when Greg made that comment at Thanksgiving. I should have told Karen to back off. I reached over and touched his hand. You're here now. That's enough. He nodded slowly. What happens next? I live my life. I tend my garden. I watch my shows. I stop apologizing for existing. He smiled. For the first time in a long time, it reached his eyes. The spring came slowly that year. I planted tomatoes again, and basil, and a row of sunflowers along the back fence. Sophie helped me mulch the beds one Saturday morning, both of us covered in dirt by noon. You know, she said, wiping her forehead with the back of her glove. Martha used to talk about you all the time. I paused, trowel in hand. Did she? She said you were the kindest person on the block, that you brought her soup when she was sick and never made a fuss about it. I thought about those evenings on Martha's porch, the way she laughed at her own jokes, the way she always had a blanket ready in case I got cold. She was my best friend, I said. I miss her every day. Sophie nodded. She said something else, too. She said, Eleanor gives too much and asks for too little. One day she'll learn to keep some for herself. I smiled. She was always smarter than me. Maybe, Sophie said. But you caught up. We finished the garden by mid-afternoon. I made lemonade and we sat on the porch, watching the robins hop across the lawn. Margot sprawled in a patch of sun, utterly content. Can I ask you something? Sophie said. Of course. Why me? Why not just Daniel? I thought about it for a moment. Daniel is good, kind. He'll honor the trust, I have no doubt. But he's too close to Karen, too willing to believe she might change. I needed someone outside the family, someone who could see clearly. Sophie looked down at her glass. I'm not sure I deserve that kind of trust. You don't have to deserve it, I said. You just have to honor it. She met my eyes. I will. I believed her. Karen stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped sending passive-aggressive cards on holidays. At first, the silence felt strange. I kept expecting her name to appear on my phone, her voice to crackle through the speaker with a new demand, a new accusation. But the silence held, and after a while, it didn't hurt. It just was. Daniel visited more often. Every other weekend, sometimes more. He'd bring groceries, fix things around the house, tell me stories about his patients. We'd watch old movies together, the ones Robert used to love, and laugh at the same jokes we'd laughed at 30 years ago. One evening, halfway through Casablanca, he said, I've been thinking about what you said, about bending. I glanced at him. And? I think I've been bending too. With Karen, with work, with a lot of things. I muted the TV. It's not too late to stop. He rubbed his face. I don't know how. You start by noticing. Then you start saying, no. Small things first, then bigger. It gets easier. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. When did you get so wise? I laughed. I'm not wise. I just ran out of patience. 3 months after the hearing, Karen sent a letter. Not through a lawyer this time. Handwritten, short. Mom, I know we've had our differences, but I'm still your daughter. I'd like to talk, if you're willing. Karen. I read it twice, held it in my hands for a long time, then I set it aside. Not because I was cruel, not because I wanted revenge, but because I knew what would happen if I opened that door. The apology would be thin, conditional. The conversation would circle back to the house, the trust, the money. She wouldn't ask how I was doing. She'd ask what I was willing to give. And I was done giving to people who only counted what they could take. Sophie asked about the letter a few days later. I told her the truth. "You're not going to respond?" she asked. "Not yet." "Maybe not ever." She nodded slowly. "That's your right." "Yes," I said. "It is." I started writing things down. Not a diary, exactly. More like letters to no one. Thoughts I needed to release. Memories I didn't want to lose. I wrote about Robert, about Martha, about the early years when Karen was sweet and Daniel was shy. I wrote about the house, the garden, the oak tree. And I wrote about the day I decided to stop disappearing. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No epiphany in the rain, no speech in a courtroom. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was standing at the kitchen sink, washing dishes, listening to Karen on speakerphone explain why I needed to start thinking about the future. And suddenly I thought, I am 66 years old. I've raised 2 children, buried a husband, survived a pandemic. I've paid my taxes, kept my house, loved the people who let me love them. And I'm standing here, in my own kitchen, being told that my life is a burden. No, I dried my hands. I ended the call, and I made an appointment with my attorney. The future Karen wanted wasn't my future. It was hers, and I refused to fund it. Now, a year later, I sit on my porch in the evening light and watch the fireflies rise from the grass. Margot is beside me, purring. The house is quiet, but not lonely. Full of ghosts, yes, but friendly ones. Robert's laugh in the hallway. Martha's voice drifting across the fence. The echo of children running up and down the stairs. I don't know how much time I have left. No one does. But I know this. I will spend it here, in this house, on my terms. I will drink my tea, tend my garden, call Daniel on Sundays. I will welcome Sophie when she comes, and thank her when she goes. And if Karen ever truly wants to repair what she broke, she'll have to do more than send a letter. She'll have to show up, not for the house, not for the money, but for me, the person she forgot, lived inside the mother she wanted to manage. I'm still here. I always was. If you've listened this far, maybe you know what this feels like. Maybe you've been the soft one, the giver, the one who stepped aside so others could step forward. Maybe you've been told your voice doesn't matter, your home doesn't belong to you, your future isn't yours to decide. If so, I want you to know something. You can say no. You can draw a line. You can protect yourself without becoming cruel. And it's never too late to start. The people who truly love you will stay. The ones who leave were only waiting for what you had, not who you were. So, don't disappear. Don't shrink. Don't apologize for wanting a seat at your own table. You've earned it. And if no one else tells you that today, let me be the one. You matter. Your voice matters. And the life you've built, every corner of it, is yours to keep.